Believe we are on the air. There we go.
There
We're on
we
the air.
go. And we are live. Hello, welcome to the VO panel. I am Lauren. I record as LW Salinas.
I am Chris Jowers, and I record as Chris Jowers.
And we are the panelists this morning. So we are going to talk about different aspects of voiceover artist life. Um, let's do the eternal first question first. How did you get into voice acting?
My entry into it was a little strange because a friend of mine had gone overseas for his another tour of duty. His son had just been born, and of course he was struggling a lot while he was over there. And so I had this idea for a project because he was a huge Batman fan, where we created Arkham for America, where it was the letters to the troops from the inmates of Arkham Asylum. And I did four voices on it, but then everyone else that did it were just his friends and family, the people we knew. There were no real actors that were on it, and that kind of bit me with the bug of voice acting, because we got some huge response out of the military with it, like people
Speaking
who had
of
been in a bit.
Batman,
Oh, that's right.
thank you,
Speaking of
Crayley.
Batman, thank you very much. And since then, I went and worked with Chatterbox Studios in Memphis. I'm currently a voice actor with Spoken Signal, run by the incomparable Bob Arnold. Absolutely fantastic writer, director, and performer I get to work with. And just finished my first audiobook. Just signed an NDA agreement because I'll be voicing my first video game this year coming up. And I am launching my own audio drama studio within a month. And that is something that Lauren knows a little bit about. And hopefully I'll get to bend her ear after we're off the air about that.
And I fell into this completely by accident. I actually spent about 7, 8 years in a genetics laboratory as a research technician. And during that time, because my work was a lot of very repetitive hurry up and wait stuff, and I had undiagnosed at the time ADHD, I would listen to a lot of audiobooks and podcasts to try and only think about two things at a time instead of 500. And one of those podcasts that I listened to had a sponsorship by Audible. I was like, hey, I like books. Let me do this. Listen to a lot of audiobooks. So through that podcast, I also met my very first podcasting partner. We had a podcast for about, I don't know, a year and a half, called Quantum Tavern. It is no longer available anywhere that I'm aware of, sadly. But because of that, I had the audio equipment. I had a little bit of the know-how. And after I lost my job in 2015 due to disability stuff, I spent about a year kicking around. During that year, some friends of mine were starting an audio drama, Strange and Unusual. Strange, the letter N, unusual. You can still find that online. And they were looking for background voices. I was like, I have the equipment. I have nothing to do during the day. And it ended up being more of a production than I thought it was going to be. We went to an actual studio to record. And I remember one of the times I was there, one of the engineers was like, there's two people in this cast that the microphone loves their voice. It's this other guy and it's Lauren. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. Thank you. But about a year after losing my job, one day I was thinking, how do you start doing audiobooks? So I Googled how to record audiobooks. I signed myself up a profile on acx.com, who is an Audible partner. And now I just finished my 34th audiobook, and I've been in a couple of projects for Crunchyroll, Netflix, Amazon, Cartoon Network, Latin America, one I'm very proud of. I'm a huge wrestling fan, and I got to do some various voices in the dub of the Rey Mysterio versus the Darkness cartoon that is currently airing in HBO and Cartoon Network Latin America and will be on HBO and Cartoon Network here in the US at some point this year.
That's awesome.
So excited.
And yes, you can actually hear Lauren and I. We were both Batman and Julie. And Julie Andrews, was that her name? Was that
Julie
her?
Madison.
Julie Madison in the Chemical Crime Syndicate. I
Yes.
believe it was the audio run by Hollis Mason and a number of other very talented actors that we just did yesterday. And you can look up on YouTube and you can find the link through the Multiverse Fundraiser and check that out as well.
Highly recommend. It was an incredibly fun project, and I think everyone did
Fun.
amazing.
Had a lot of fun doing it. I will say that.
Yeah. Any day I get to say I'm in a Batman project, automatically a good day. Speaking of which,
now that so actually a backstory, I had created a fun little Batman fan project that was actually really just about dialogue and character work, and it was very short. Lauren does an amazing Harley Quinn, by the way, goosebumps Harley Quinn, and we were getting ready to finish it, but then the SAG and the Writers Guild strike happened, which meant a hard stop on any work that was associated with WB. I mean, with any of the large, I shouldn't just say WB, but any of the large studios. But now that is over with and that has been settled, we're going to be finally moving forward on that. So I'm hoping to get my Batman actor back. I don't want to name drop him yet because I don't know if he's going to be free enough yet to do it, because his thing's kind of taken off after the strike as well. But look forward to that in its form coming up in the next few months. So let's get into this crazy thing called voice acting. And I was thinking about it when we got started, is that you can hear the difference in the quality of Lauren and I's voice, because I am not using my audio rig to record. I'm using just a secondary microphone that I use for sound effects, because this closet to my side is where my audio rig is located. So getting into voice acting, you really have to focus and make sure that the equipment that you're getting with is good. If you really want to do this as a job, if you don't know if you're going to do it for a job yet and you want to practice, don't worry about excellent top tier quality. But to make it, you have to get a professional style rig.
Yeah. So I am going to promote I'm on a podcast. It's a Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast called Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Been on it for a very long time now. We're almost to our 500th episode. And my producer, Stargate Pioneer, also works on a podcast called Better Podcasting. They're on a bit of a hiatus right now, but if you are interested in learning more about audio equipment from various hobbyist levels all the way to professional, cannot recommend them enough. Stargate Pioneer is the one because he's an audiophile. He is our editing guy. He is our sound guy.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, I was just using kind of the stuff that I was using to do World of Warcraft raids at the time. And he was like, well, that's unacceptable. Here's what you need. So slightly better mic, mixer, that sort of thing. Something that I always recommend is do not break the bank, especially if you don't know if you're interested in doing this as more than a hobby. As you go, you do the usual reinvest in your business thing. Like, oh, okay, I think I could use a better mic. I think maybe I could use a preamp, a mixer, a better recording program, whatever. Do it. Don't break the bank. Do it slowly. Do it as it fits you. Mm-hmm. The other thing I'd really recommend investing in is classes, especially if you're somebody like me who was actually kicked out of drama in high school.
Same here. And I also found that if it's something that you're interested in, look for audio drama companies. I was very lucky that I lived in Memphis at a time, and I found out through a friend of mine that there was an audio company called Chatterbox. And not only were they just sort of amateur voice actors, there were some professional stage actors there. and people who had an acting background, but there was no real professional voice actor part of it. But they kept everything at a professional level. So my entrance into it and my entire reel, as we like to say, from Chatterbox and Spoken Signal, it's all professional grade. And I got to learn from those people and make those connections very early to people that could help me make and develop a professional level of sound. And even to this day, my mic setup is great, but I can tell just in talking, when I hear Lauren talk and when we chat with each other, it's I got to get there. So like, I know, like, even though I think my stuff works good, I know what she's got is better than mine. And you will catch the difference when you start doing it. And it can be a slight little thing, but that slight little thing can be a huge difference. It can be a big difference maker for you professionally. But please follow Lauren's advice. Do not invest in this hobby unless you know it's something that you really want to do and really want to get into, because it can just be a money sink without you getting professional quality. Because there's so many. What about the space you're recording in? What about your living space?
Yeah.
What about extraneous sounds? Can you do any type of long form recording? Or are you recording in between a dog barking, somebody's air conditioning unit up, noisy neighbors? There's a lot of intangibles that suddenly become very tangible the second you start recording.
Yeah, so I feel like, okay, first off, invest in slightly better quality mic, things like that. Secondly, sound treated space. The most common one that people start out with, the one that I started out with, is a closet with lots of clothes, blankets, whatever, to help absorb extra sound. What I'm currently recording in is a sound treated office in my home, and to kind of kill some of the echoing from the back, because again, doing this a little at a time as I can afford it. But I got a sound panel from IKEA, of all things, like a room divider, and put it right behind me. You can find some really interesting stuff on how to sound treat a room on things like YouTube, and YouTube is a lifesaver, honestly. Anything you don't know how to do, you can find on YouTube.
And there will be a skilled child that will tell you as an adult exactly what you need to know. That's what I've always found.
It is more true than I'd like to admit. Slightly circling back, I also recommend, if you're planning on getting started, trying out audio dramas. That is also where I got my start. And there are a number of places you can go to find audio dramas. First of all, I know Twitter is a hellscape. I will never call it X. It is Twitter. But searching either hashtag casting call or specifically at VA Casting RT, you can find a lot of stuff at various levels of professionality. Like, if you just want to try it out, there's lots of people who are looking for volunteer projects, like student projects, things like that. Then you can go straight into charging. I highly recommend, I think not Casting Call Club. Well, you can also look at Casting Call Club for more auditions. But there is a website where you can find out here it is, voiceactingclub.com/rates. This is where you can find what is recommended for non-union pay for different projects at different scales. Highly, highly, highly recommend them. Remember that this is a competitive field, but by everyone kind of keeping sort of the same baseline, you're helping other people by not having to underprice themselves.
Yes.
We got a question.
Do you have any influences from any actors that help your style?
Yes.
Go ahead. You go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead and start. You take this first.
Before any of this was even on the horizon for me, I've always kind of been fascinated by voiceover. I used to watch stuff about Mel Blanc constantly as a kid. The thing that really helped me was there was a podcast running that I would listen to on the drive to and from work called Talking Tunes with Rob Paulson. And I think it's still going as like a YouTube show or something.
Mm-hmm.
But listening to people talking about their journeys, talking about their approaches to voice acting, I absorbed that without knowing that I was doing so. And it helped me, somebody who, again, did not start as an actor, to kind of find that space. The other big influence is I took a year-long class with Steve Bloom, who you might recognize as the American or the English dub voice of Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, Wolverine in like
Anything in the last 20 years, probably.
yeah, since Wolverine and the X-Men onward.
Mm-hmm.
He's just an incredibly prolific voice actor. I was lucky enough to be in a small class that he was doing once a month for, about a year, a little over a year. And getting that point of view and getting that feedback very, very, very definitely influenced how I tend to re-listen to my own work, how I tend to self-direct, things like that.
For me, I mean, honestly, we can bring up some of the goats of the business, but it was when I was watching the Batman of the animated series and first discovered that Mark Hamill was the Joker. And I could not process that Luke Skywalker was doing a fantastic, who reinvented the Joker after Nicholson. No one was touching the Joker after Nicholson. And then he creates the voice that we all try to emulate when we do the Joker now. And I just thought it was great. But then I started really listening to the voices. And because I was a big sketch comedy fan and had watched, sitcoms and stuff, I was finding people like Phil LaMarr, Cree Summer, and Deborah Wilson, especially Phil LaMarr and Deborah Wilson from Mad TV. And then listening for them to do multiple voices with such range. And I could tell, well, okay, that's her, that's Deborah Wilson. But whoa. And it was the acting that was coming in, especially in Justice League, when it's a cartoon, but they had a lot of heavy drama. And it was really coming into the performances. And it was not only just the style, but the idea that, no, you're acting. You have to bring the weight, the gravity, the humor, the horror, whatever it is. You can do a voice, that's awesome. But can you do subtlety and depth while doing that voice? And that's what it was showing me, because these were actors I knew from Mad TV. They were hilarious. I never knew them to be in anything dramatic or anything like that. And then I was starting to listen to them do just very deep character work and on so many different things, from video games, comic books, animated movies, or cartoons, I should say. And that's what started making me think about my own performances. Like I was doing funny voices, but could I act in that voice? Can I do this accent and then actually give this a layered performance? Or is it just a kitschy, funny sound coming out of my voice? And then I really started paying attention to that. And then I got very lucky to meet actors like Tom Kenny and Jess Harnell and J. Michael Tatum, and just be able to work with them just on stage with convention work, and to listen to them talk about how to do it and how effortlessly they would just zip in and zip out of characters, but also how serious they would talk about 5 lines on an anime and then record that same 5 lines 50, 60, 100 times, looking for that perfect subtlety and that perfect nuance that would nail the scene.
That's another thing, real quick. The acting is the most important part. I can do like one impression, and it's not an impression anybody ever asks for. I could do one line of Strong Mad from the Strong Bad cartoons. But there's a misconception. You have to be able to be a complete chameleon with your voice. You have to be able to do these impressions. No. Look at actors like H. John Benjamin, Kristen Schaal. they have the same voice and everything. The difference is that you can tell when H. John Benjamin is doing Bob Belcher versus when he's doing Coach McGurk versus when he's doing Archer. The acting is there. um, so if you can only do your voice, just make it the best voice you can do. Make it the most emotional, emotive voice that you can do.
Kevin Conroy is a goat. He is an absolute legend. He was the voice of Batman for many years. And he is a stage Shakespearean trained, amazing actor. But when Kevin Conroy does a voice, you know immediately it's Kevin Conroy. His voice is very distinctive. Mark Hamill can chameleon his voice that I didn't know for the longest time that he is Joker and Solomon Grundy in the Justice League cartoon. And those are on the completely different ends of a vocal spectrum. It is the acting part of it that is the exact, what Lauren is saying is 1000% right. It is the acting portion of it that is going to give you a career or get you work or to really see if this is something that you're going to do, they really want to do, because the acting part is key. I can mimic very well, but I also have a background in acting and performing. But you don't need to be Stitch. You don't need to be Mark Hamill's Joker. It's better if you create your own voices that stand out and people go, no, that's the voice that I want. And be that Steve Bloom, where he has that gravel that is so perfect, or Fred Tascagori's Hulk. Like, yeah, people can do the Hulk, but when Fred Tascagori does it, that's the Hulk.
So what else do you do because we know there are multiple paths into voice acting. There are multiple channels of voice acting. So other than characters, like what else in the voice acting realm have you found yourself doing at various points?
I've done some commercial work, and but it's a lot of the times when I would work for companies, I would be the person that would design a presentation, and I'd end up being the voice of the company. Which, if this is something that you're getting into as a side business, but you got to pay the bills, if you're able to do a presentation style voice or something like that, and you're able to you're going to keep your job when other people start getting whittled down. And so I have done so many presentations on YouTube for different things, like commercials for companies I work with. It's Chris Jowers' voice is the voice that you're going to hear. I've just picked up video game work, audio novel, but I'm not even going to touch that because Lauren is the empress of the audiobook. I'm not even going to talk about that. But and again, one thing I will say, and that really separates an audio narrator out from somebody who you listen to on, say, a creepypasta, or you're listening to somebody on YouTube, is emotion. I have listened to audiobooks where, weirdly enough, I listened to a Stephen King book, and I'm going to drop two big actors on this. It was James Woods, and the person before him was Willem Dafoe. James Woods is a better voice actor than Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe's every person sounds like Willem Dafoe. Every character Willem Dafoe does, it's Willem Dafoe doing a voice.
Yeah, if anything, the past few years have made it really, really obvious that voice acting and screen acting do not always translate. There's some amazing screen actors who have turned in just really mediocre to terrible performances in some big name projects.
I listened to James Spader did Dean Koontz' Strange Highways. He did the audiobook, and it was awful because you could hear the clips because he couldn't do long takes. It seemed like they were piecing it together. And James Spader is a phenomenal stage and screen actor. It just doesn't translate sometimes. And I think, honestly, a lot of people hate on Chris Pratt for various reasons, but I got to say, his voice acting, it just sounds like Chris Pratt. It just always sounds like Chris Pratt. I don't really hear any variety in it. But then I hear other actors that like, if anyone's ever seen Blue Eyed Samurai, if you haven't seen it tonight, start watching it on Netflix. Kenneth Branagh is in it, and he's in the credits. And when you find out what character he is, it blows your mind that that's Kenneth Branagh, because you'd think you would know exactly what he sounds like. And it's no, there's some actors that can do everything.
By the way, that's the side effect that they never tell you about is you're going to start, once you start doing this, you start judging. And it's
you're like,
Okay, what are both of your favorite novels that you've narrated?
Well, Lauren, you have to be the one that goes through and picks it out. So that's going to be the one that puts you on the fire.
Let's see. Oh, God. I'm going to have to go with recency bias. Mm-hmm. I just got done with a trilogy of very, very heavy books. It's A Legacy of Silence is the series name. The author is Amy Rivers, and it is about human trafficking, essentially. It's two sisters dealing with PTSD from their own assaults and a small town corruption, things like that. Generational trauma. And in terms of performance, I mostly do romance novels is most of what I've been hired to do. I would love the chance to do more dramatic stuff, horror, things like that. But this, I had the opportunity to just kind of dig down really deep and just sort of rip myself open and let it all spill out. A lot of recording sessions ended with me going out to the living room to get a hug from my spouse. And it was incredibly tough, but also incredibly cathartic. And I think I put everything of myself into the performance of those three books. Mm-hmm. The third one, Ripple Effect, just came out a couple of weeks ago. And it was an incredibly heavy, but an incredibly satisfying experience.
That's awesome. I'm gonna piggyback very shortly on this because you have the big experience doing this. This is just something that I've recently started doing, and I just finished my first book with our very own Kelly Gentner's Scorcher series, and fingers crossed we're going to be moving on to the sequel. And it was, I got to do a multiple cast of characters of different accents. And that's what I love doing. It was a great challenge to do. But what got me is it's an action romance. It's a superhero action romance thing. And so it was, I recorded one section that was very romantic, and I sent it to Kelly. And this is when I knew I did a great job. She sent it back. She goes, "I wrote that, and you made me cry."
It's the best compliment ever.
It really is. But she got me back because I had to find, she has a very international cast. And so I was like, well, I've got to get this accent. I've got to get this accent. I've got to get this accent. And I found an accent that I've done before, but I altered it for the character. No spoilers here, won't do anything. And I loved doing the character. But what I did is I didn't want to, so I didn't want it to spoil myself. So I read the chapter that I'm going to record and I practice it. So everything is, thank you very much, Carly. And so I stay on target. So my performance doesn't get any subconscious stuff that I know that this is going to be a sad ending, because unless the author is foreshadowing it, I shouldn't foreshadow it. Mm-hmm. So I would just read the chapter. I'd go over it. Then I would record it. And I was like, I like this guy. This guy's awesome. This guy's going to be so much fun. Next chapter, dead. I was furious about that.
Oh, I love it. I love. So a while back, there was a discussion on a professional Facebook group that I'm on. Somebody saying that their method was that they don't pre-read the book, which I think is a mistake, because first of all, it helps you kind of figure out the vibes and therefore voices of characters, things
Hmm.
like that. But it helps you know when to manipulate the text, when to do that. Oh,
Yeah,
everything's going great. Everything's
that's a
going
good
great,
point.
when you know this person is about to just bite it.
Yeah, like that's, and I did it that way because it was my first one, and part of me was like, I'm tackling it. This isn't the same as an audio drama where you have to know, like I have to know exactly everything that I'm doing. But you do need to get with the writer and get the voice, what I call the voice Bible. Like, what characters do I need to know? Because a cop here, a throwaway character there, we can easily manipulate those voices. But if I know I have 17 main characters, I need to make sure that they don't sound alike.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they end up on the same page, that's not going to be a good look. But Lauren, I'm going to start doing that from now on because you're dead on the money. Because you can start manipulating the reader in those
Yes.
subtle ways. And I love manipulating people. So you won me over. I was wrong and you're right. You won me over.
Do either of us have a dream project? Oh, I just got to do mine. Like I said, I'm a huge, huge wrestling fan. I got to be in the dub of the Rey Mysterio versus the Darkness cartoon. Rey Mysterio is an absolute legend. Not only is he just amazing in the ring, but he is really important to I'm Hispanic. I am Mexican American, and him and Eddie Guerrero were just some of the biggest figures in Hispanic wrestling. Like to this day, both of them are still just constantly paid homage to.
Hmm.
And so when I got the opportunity to audition, I was like, oh, this is great. I'll do my usual okay, get used to hearing no, or more commonly, just never hearing back about auditions. Just do
Yep.
you send it out there and then you do your best to forget about it. That is how you avoid uh, professional despair, let's say. So I got the opportunity to do the audition. I'm like, oh, this sounds fun. Yeah, I'll do this, audition for a couple parts, send it off, try and forget about it. Months later, I
You
get
didn't
the
forget
email.
about it, did you?
I
You
did
didn't
not
forget
forget
about
about it. Months later,
it.
I got the email, and I am not kidding when I say that I dropped to my knees and cried. I was so happy. I'm not even doing any like major voices. I'm a couple of various mothers and grandmothers and crowd voices. But I'm in a Rey Mysterio project.
I remember when you posted that. I immediately reached out because I was like, I could just see you like typing that.
Yes,
It's around typing that.
I'm still just in awe and shock that it happened at all. Um, Other than that, I would like to be in a video game at some point.
Well, I'll see what I can do about that. For me, there's two types of projects that I think that would honestly be a dream of mine. One would be to do an audio novel or be part of an audio drama of some of my favorite authors. There's two authors in particular, David Gemmell and Joe Abercrombie, that whose books I have read countless times. Gemmell's books inspired me as a person. Abercrombie's books inspired me as a writer. To to have anything to do with their properties would be a big get for me. But the other thing is to be a legit supervillain in a DC or Marvel project. And I don't need to be Doctor Doom. I don't even need to be the Joker. It'd be nice. But just to be able to have that, because that's what I grew up with. That was one of my absolute loves to do, was read comic books and play role playing games. And it's the first time some people have seen me not being the Joker. But and just because that was Lauren's just enthusiasm and joy that she is projecting just talking about this would be that to just be a part of something that you actually truly care about and that actually means a lot to you would, to me, that's a big deal. And I got a little taste of that in Chatterbox because we did a classic radio episode of The Shadow. And Bob Arnold, who was the director and writer, reached out to me and goes, I know you love The Shadow. You're an old school radio guy. I want you to be in this. And I was elated. He immediately goes, you're not The Shadow. Because I will take your wind out of your sails. But just recording lines that were so vital to the creation of the audio drama. And just an episode of a show that became so vital into what radio plays at the time, but originally turned into audio drama, was a big thing. But to hit those two milestones would be awesome. And I am so fantastically thrilled that Lauren's already done that. That's awesome. How good is your
thankfully, not good. Although when I was younger and I was doing stuff in little class plays and things like that, I was one of those people who thought that acting meant loud. So I would say it was probably a lot better when I was around 9. So what you said about wanting to be a supervillain, being known as being the Joker, typecasting.
Oh yeah.
What is your opinion?
Oh yeah. To me, the danger of typecasting comes in for voice actors as well. And this can lead into something that Lauren and I have talked on a number of times that we've done this. Is also about representation. Is that your voice and your work, you can be typecasted. When I started Chatterbox, the very first show, I was the hero. I was Jason in Argonautica. Of Jason and the Argonauts, I was Jason. And I was thrilled about that. And almost every show after that, I was the bad guy. They were great parts, but I was always the bad guy. And I just loved it. But one of the dangers that even of a voice actor is that if you get a note saying, hey, Chris, we need you to voice this Caribbean pirate who's from Jamaica. I probably shouldn't do that. Now, that doesn't mean I can't be a pirate, but you really need to make sure that you're being able to represent. Now, the one thing I will say, and I've got to give a shout out to Bronson Pinchot from Perfect Strangers fame. He is now a very prolific and award-winning voice actor and audio narrator. He's a very big audio narrator. I listened to a book series by Larry Correia in which is a very, very diverse cast of characters from it's an alternate 1940s. So the Imperial Japanese are sort of the bad guys in it. And so I was like, what's he going to do? And what he did was he did this very controlled voice because all of the characters that are speaking English, they're supposed to be highly educated. They're supposed to be these spies. So he didn't touch any type of stereotype stuff. He avoided it completely. And then it was, well, I have to voice, say, a character that is from Africa, but I'm doing an audiobook, so I have to do all the characters. Then I am going to do my due diligence to do that voice, but it's an audiobook. I'm hired to cover all the characters. But as a voice actor in an audio drama, I would not voice a character that I myself could not represent on screen in some capacity. And I think that's a good rule of thumb we all need to think about because Lauren and I have spoken about this numerous times. It's very, very important.
Yeah, as somebody who is, I guess, a quadruple minority, I'm Chicana, I'm disabled, I'm bisexual, and okay, maybe it's just the 3.
Just the
But I guess if you toss neurodivergent in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not in a group that really grew up seeing myself in media.
Excuse me.
And that's changed so much. It's gotten to the point where I remember seeing a comment where there's enough Hispanic representation now that we can actually not like stuff. But it is always, always, always a thing. And I have a niece who is Afro-Latina. And the thought that she is going to grow up to see people who represent her, like
Mhm.
Zoe Saldana, Gina Torres, it means the world to me. Now, there are occasions like audiobooks, things like that, where
Mhm.
you are called on to voice characters who are not you. I found out when I was cast in the Rey Mysterio show that two of the characters that I would be doing would be Afro-Latina. And again, the key there is not being stereotypical, because you go back and you look at stuff from the 80s, the 90s before. I was recently just watching on New Year's, there was a marathon on YouTube of the 1980s Ninja Turtle cartoon, which I loved.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of white people doing Japanese accents in at least the first couple of episodes. It's not great, but like you said, the key, if you are called on to do a character who is other to you, is to find that humanity and to be aware of the negative stereotypes.
Mhm.
Like, again, the first ever book I got to do, because there's two things that I've built my career off of. One is sounding like a mother figure. Apparently I have that kind of voice. And the other is I am a pretty decent accent study. And that's basically how I sold myself for my very first audiobook. It was
Mhm.
a very international cast. It took place in space. So you get to do all of these characters.
Yeah.
And the key there, I feel like, is finding the flavor without being a
Mhm.
stereotype.
And it's one thing that we do as voice actors. Like I was actually talking to some of when I'm also a teacher, and I was talking to some of my kids about it, and I said, look, I love the film Black Panther and Wakanda Forever, and Winston Duke's M'Baku is awesome. And it's the tones, and it's the sound of his voice, and it's his heritage native accent that of his family's history that he is using. I don't know if it's Nigerian or Ghanese, but it's an actual dialect that he uses. And I told the guys, I said, I love, that is my favorite character of the MCU right now, is M'Baku. I will never voice his character. But what I can do as a voice actor is listen to different cultures' way of using vowel sounds and how they pronounce things, not to mimic them, but to open up my range of voice. So that if I do the character that I'm cast for in this video game is not human, and they threw some notes at me. We kind of wanted it to kind of be like this, that, or the other. And I said, okay, I'm not doing this voice. I'm going to take some things and I'm going to put it together and create a patchwork that sounds Norwegian. It's Norwegian, a little Dutch, a little this, a little that, and put it all together. But it's really about just making sure you're being authentic, because when you get into the art more, you can tell the authenticity. Like if as a writer myself, I'm doing my own audiobook, except for the stories that are not written from a point of view that I could do, because I want my words to be authentic. So they are two stories that are from a first person point of view from a woman. I want a woman to read those parts. I have one that's set in Japan. I want to get a Japanese voice actor or someone who's Japanese American to do that part, to bring the authenticity to the words. And it's so important that you still think about that in voice acting, because you need to represent yourself at all times. Your work will follow you. The choices that you make and the things you think are okay, they will follow you.
So, real quick, I want to pause the conversation and bring up why we are here again. So, we are here raising money for the Comic Books for Kids group, where you can donate at facebook.com/the multiverse fundraiser or at www.comicbooksforkids. Because, I mean, first of all, it's a good cause. You are helping out kids in very dire situations to kind of
Mhm.
help distract them. And
I've got to see firsthand this charity at work. I'm part of Cosplay Memphis, and then I show up as the Joker. And we have worked with comic books for kids to give comic books out. I'm talking about going to Le Bonheur Hospital and kids that are there for treatment. And those comic books can become a distraction that they so desperately need. And we at times sometimes devalue entertainment, but sometimes entertainment is the only thing that can help somebody get past a dark time, that can push past something that's beyond their control. And this is an absolutely wonderful charity that not only helps kids, but they also send comic books to the military. They do so much work, and the comic books they've changed lives, but also they can help you just get out of a dark place when you desperately need it. So that's a wonderful, wonderful charity.
yeah, we were just talking about representation, and kids like to see people that they can relate to in comics. And if you are a kid in a bad situation, you may grab on to a character and just kind of. I remember when I was a kid, I was not going through anything on the scale that any of these kids that the organization works with are dealing with. But I was a very anxious, angry, bullied kid at various
Mm-hmm.
points in my life. And the way that I would always get through it was, what would Rogue do? What would Luke Skywalker do? What would Wolverine do? And these characters that I saw aspects of myself in kind of just helped me make it through another day.
Yeah.
And being able to give that escapism, that there's a word I'm looking for.
It really is a lifeline at times. It really is
Lifeline.
a lifeline that can pull you out of something that you desperately need. And to piggyback on that and to go right into voice acting, there's this exercise that I do. When I was done with Chatterbox and Chatterbox closed its doors and we all moved on, I wasn't voice acting anymore. And I started to almost have like, I feel terrible because I don't have that outlet. If you're thinking about doing voice acting and you want to build a vocal library and you want to see what kind of character work, you can easily do this. I call it Uplifting Voice Message Day. I go on Facebook and I say, Uplifting Voice Message Day, request a voice, and I'll shoot you a message and do it. And I did this just as a practice. And a friend of mine said, hey, you should keep a list of the different voices you do just to see what happens. And that list went from about, the same voices people were acting, or about, 5 or 10, the same voices they knew I could do. And the last time I looked at it, it was over 215. And it is a wonderful test to say, hey, can you be Lucifer from the show Lucifer? Can you be Sinestro from the Sinestro Corps? Can you be this? Can you be that? But also, though I have gotten some very wonderful, heartfelt replies from people that just a little goofiness helped them get through a bad day. So kind of piggyback, but that is a absolutely terrific character exercise. You're just doing it to your friends, ask for honest feedback, and kind of push yourself. See what your range is. Test your range. See what you can find.
Yeah, it's all well and good. Know your niche. Know what will get you hired. But
Mm-hmm.
also, this is kind of an inherently silly job. And it really helps to be able to embrace that and just play. Like
Mm-hmm.
every class I've ever gone to, the biggest advice was just play around. Don't take yourself so seriously. Make the big choices. And by doing stuff like that, by getting out of your own head, it's fun. It's cathartic. It make it fun to listen to.
Mm-hmm. And you'll also find your support system
Yes.
because the people who reply to you and actually say, hey, that was great. Try this next time. Or, hey, that was wonderful. Don't always try to impress people that are in the business or have an acting experience. Because sometimes shocking and impressing the person who isn't artistic, that they're not in the business, they're not in the game, but they work hard every day and they're stressed out, and your voice actually reached them. in a way that nobody else could at that moment means you got something there. And you should really express it and really try and keep going.
Hmm. Oh, shoot. I was just about to piggyback. Okay. Got a question. What does the future look like for the profession of voice acting? Will there be more or less work? First of all, thank you for saving me from forgetting what I was about to say. And secondly, I have actually been in a huge argument about this with my dad. Right now, voice acting and artificial intelligence, AI, has been a very, very, very big point of contention.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot of people who are using these like AI voices and voice banks and things like that to work on various projects. When it comes to AI, there are times I think it's appropriate. There are times I think it is not appropriate. When it is when it's an assistive technology, I think that's great. A friend of mine has trained something on their own artwork because they have hand issues now and can no longer do that, and are able to use that as a way to continue being creative. That I think is great. But what you're seeing a lot of is people who are having their voices scraped and used without their consent in various projects. You can see this all over TikTok. In that case, not a fan. There has also been a lot of backlash from this, which I am very, very grateful to the community for. A lot of people saying if there's AI voices, they won't buy a product. A lot of people saying if there's AI writing, they won't buy a product. And I think that if anything, it's made people appreciate actual human voice actors more by realizing, hey, this is a thing that can be taken away from you. So I think in the short term, there are going to be maybe fewer projects, fewer opportunities as studios try out the use of AI as a cost-saving means. But I think that overall, as studios realize we aren't getting the kickback we thought we were from this, I think those voice opportunities will open up again. There's also the fact that due to the pandemic and everything, remote recording has become more of an option. Whereas before it was like you live in LA, you live in New York, you live in Houston or Dallas. And we're not seeing that as much anymore. So we're seeing more roles opening up for people of different genders, ethnicities, things like that in different locations. And I think that because of that, yes, it's going to widen the field significantly, but it also means that there's more opportunities for people who might not have had it before.
Yeah, competition, and competition can be a good thing. And to really add on to what Lauren said about AI is that AI, it can be a very fun thing to use, but please know there are only very few AI programs that use legally sourced materials. So some of the bots people use and some of the art stations that you get on, there are some, hey, all this AI stuff is used from the images that we own. And so we have the right to all these stock images, and that's how we develop this. The majority of the AI out there is taken from art that was used without permission and without compensation. So that's people going out and just stealing a bunch of people's work to put together. Please don't share AI stuff on social media. If you look at something and think it's cool, hey, that looks kind of nice, that AI is kind of interesting, but the more that it gets shared, that's telling the algorithms that this is important. And AI does have a place and it is useful, but it is also just taking the hard work of a lot of people. So there is a balancing act here where we can use it. When is it ethical? When is it ethical? When isn't it ethical? It is something that just get like, even as an author right now, people are making AI written books and they're calling themselves writers. And I'm like, you're a programmer. There's a difference. There's a skill level that it takes to do that. but that's called programming. So you're just a programmer, and just be that. Then just say that you program the AI to write the book. It isn't the same thing, but it is something that we have to be aware of and be careful of, because I don't want to even be associated with the project that uses AI voice work. And even when I release my own voice work, I try to have it on the paper, or I will put something the in the title screen or in the credits where the artists do not give their permission for their voices to be used for any AI. And I just signed to do this video game, and that was actually in the contract from the developer. The no voice work will be used by AI without the actors express permission, this project included. So they were like, nope, your voice is what's going to be on here. So it's something that the industry is taking very serious. Just look at the backlash Marvel got in for Secret Invasion for having an AI horrible, horrible credit sequence that people raked them over the coals about. They just went to task on them over that.
Oh yeah, we talked it on Legends of Shield, and while arguably the credit scene was the least thing that was the problem with that show, it was certainly a way to kind of kick off, oh, I'm going to be disappointed by this, aren't I?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So we are almost out of time. Why don't we do our self-promotion thing?
Or after you go right
All
ahead.
right. So you can find everywhere that I'm at professionally on my website, lwsalinas.com. This includes podcasts, audiobooks, dub projects. I really need to include a streaming thing on there. I've been in a bunch of actual play streaming shows.
Mm-hmm.
I am still on Twitter at Sithwitch. I am very much of the why should I leave? He's the one who sucks. You can mostly find me on there yelling about wrestling. I'm also on Blue Sky, also at Sithwitch. Same thing. And I am always glad to talk voice acting, to give advice, anything like that. If you're ever curious about any aspect of audiobook recording, production, promotion, anything like that, always willing to talk it. So just, yeah, message me on there if you're curious, or if you have a project you want to hire me for.
And I would love to, but before I get into mine, I want to say when I first started thinking about doing audiobooks, I asked Lauren about it, and she was absolutely wonderful about her advice and getting back with me. You want to get in this business, you should be listening to what she says. She knows what she's talking about, and she's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
You can find everything I'm involved in over at chrisjowers.com. My podcast that you can find anywhere podcasts are streaming is The Confession of Johnny 8. It is a horror comedy / improv podcast of a serial killer confessing that you have to figure out if he's actually crazy or not, or if he's something even more terrifying. Self-blood. We've just finished the Scorcher audio novel with Kelly Guttner, and that will hopefully, we got to get all the little bells and whistles knocked out for Audible, will be up within a month or so up on Audible. And I'm going to be launching my own audio drama studio in about a month with our very first project, where I've got to finish up the little bells and whistles on that, and hope to be putting out a project once a month. So hopefully Lauren will hang out with me in SteamYard before we leave, because I do have to bend her ear on a few things. But you can also find me on Instagram, the Twitters, and everything else is just at the Jowers. And that's where you can find us. And thank you guys for tuning in and listening to us.
Yes. And once again, remember to donate at facebook.com/themultiverse or at www.comicbooksforkids.org. Help out a kid in need and feel good about yourself and know that you are making a difference in someone's life.
And this is a terrific organization with wonderful people, and they really do an amazing job. so many times this kind of work gets overlooked. It really does lift these kids' spirits when they need it most, and the men and women of our services. So please do donate if you can. Thank you guys so much.
And with that, we will give the hosts back their channel. Get ready for the next panel and have a great day, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Bye bye.